Everybody, welcome back to SCGCON Cincinnati. I'm Tanner Grayson, joined here by Jeff Foster. We are covering the 25K team open here this weekend. This will be the last round for myself and Jeff here, but we've got Dominic Harvey and Andrew Ellenbogen going to be coming in for the last round of Swiss next round, plus the top 8. So you're actually going to have an upgrade in the casting booth, at least for me, moving forward. But Jeff, we've got a pretty cool matchup here in Legacy here this round. We are going to be seeing Dimir Death Shadow again, but the deck on the other side is pretty cool.
Man, I've not seen Painter in a while. We've got Rakdos Painter. Man, it's been so cool going through this tournament. I know I was talking with you earlier today before we went live about how Legacy has changed so much from when I played a whole lot back in the 2019 time, but all these decks that I'm seeing are the same, but with like upgrades. It's like the same
Yeah.
archetype. It's the cards are different, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, look at the upgrades. You've got Fable, the Mirror Breaker, the deck now. Urza Saga is quite a good one in this deck. Orcish Bowmasters has found its way into here too, so that's what the Rakdos part of this is. You've got a Phyrexian Dragon engine here. Even Chaos Defiler as well is in here. So lots of cool newer cards. This isn't your mom and dad's version of Painter. This isn't your grandma's version of Painter that you had 15 years ago. This one can grind. This one can combo. It can do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, there is a part of me that's like the deck's really cool. But it's only playing two grindstone. I'm trying to figure out a little bit of what the plan is for things like Chaos Defiler, Phyrexian Dragon Engine, because it looks a little bit more like stompy decks that we used to see, than just strictly painted stone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It does have that kind of feel to it. Plus, it's playing what I think might be like slowly becoming one of the best cards in Legacy, and kind of maybe like what's the astronaut meme always was, or whatever in Ancient Tomb.
Yep.
And that card is just so powerful, and against a lot of these decks, Ancient Tomb just kind of goes over the top. Usually, Ancient Tomb, is paired up with something like Chalice of the Void, and that's why it's so good in a lot of these matchups. You won't be seeing that in this matchup. I'm double checking real quick. Yeah, I don't think there are any Chalices in the sideboard as well, but still, it's going to help power out stuff like the Painter Servants and some of these other things like Grindstone and Fable and stuff just a little bit faster in these games. And so you'll see some turbo mana. As I say that, I think we're seeing an Ancient Tomb be shipped to the bottom here by John. Looks like is John going down to 5?
It looks like John is choosing two cards to put back. Yeah. I think we're going to 5 here. Um, but yeah, as far as Ancient Tomb, I the amount of damage I have taken in from Ancient Tomb is easily in the thousands. It's I love that card. I have cast a lot of show and tells off of that
So
card.
I just played a ton of Legacy, right? And I think the two cards that I have like some of the lowest win percentage against, like the lowest win percentage against when my opponent plays them, is Ancient Tomb and City of Traders. Like I just like do not beat that card that often. That's up
Yeah,
there with Chalice of the Void as well, but just generally the decks with those strategies are generally beat me pretty good.
yeah. I mean, it's when mana is the fundamental gate for all of your cards, right? Like every card's strength is determined by how much mana it costs. Being able to cheat on mana, especially on the play, just like it allows you to do very powerful things that like your opponent sometimes just can't recover from. Like these types of decks have the ability to turn one Blood Moon um off of
Goblin.
Lotus, right?
Yeah. You see Goblin Engineer getting selected here by the Thoughtseize because that one's kind of like a pseudo tutor effect in the deck. So you're slowing down John quite a bit here. The Welder doesn't really have a really good target just yet. You see that John doesn't even deploy the Welder here as well. Looks like Alessandro is getting out quite a good start here. He's got 2 fetches into Water Graves into a Thoughtseize. That light till's already pretty low. So he's going to have some Death Shadows pretty early in this game, it looks like.
Yeah, in John's situation, with there being no real targets, I would much rather get my welder thought seized than fatal pushed right now because like it's not going to do anything on the battlefield. So it might as well just stick around in your hand for a while. Um,
Street Wraith double fetch into Thoughtseize. Put also down pin like we're talking about, so that Death Shadow already pretty huge. So Goblin Welder is going to come into play for John this turn.
and I'm wondering at what point that goblin.
We finally got one, but it looks like there's going to be a force of will here. I was just about to say, yeah, we saw Brainstorm get played here, and immediately the Lotus Petal goes in the graveyard for black mana, and Orcish Bowmasters come into play. But thankfully for Alessandro, he has a Force of Will back up here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna assume this late in the tournament, these people know that they're likely to play against each other. They've probably been scouting each other. Alessandro probably knows John has Orcish Bowmasters in his deck, but it's a closed deck list event. Like there is a chance that Lotus Petal catches him off guard. He's expecting it to cast a Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Or a Blood Moon or something, and it casts Orcish Bowmaster instead right into a Brainstorm.
Absolutely, it does look like Alessandro does have a fetch land in behind us. Didn't want to play it before attacking here, so maybe he doesn't want to clear the top card of his deck. If I remember, I think the top card of his deck might be another cantrip here, so maybe I'm going to hold on to it just a bit. John's down to one card in his hand here, and he's got a Welder with no real targets to really well just yet. And we've got a blue card plus Force here left over in Alessandro's hand too, so he's going to be feeling pretty good about the spot that he's in.
Yeah, that blue card looks like Daze.
Yep.
So yeah, we've got the classic Daze plus Force of Will on turn 5 of this game, where Daze now just becomes fodder for Force of Will because it's never going to get cast. But I mean, I think that with John only having one card in hand, I think it's relatively safe now for this Death Shadow to just start going to work. Because John doesn't have any. Oh, there's a red blast for the Brainstorm, but John doesn't have any artifacts to swap out with that welder, even if the artifact were to get countered upon cast.
It looks like this Death Shadow is going to get in the red zone, and this will lower the life total of Alessandro. So he does have an extra water grave left over, so this is going to bring him down to 7. So this is going to be a very big Death Shadow attacking. And there was a blue card, like you said, there was Daze and Force in Alessandro's hand, and he could have maybe forced back on this Pyroblast or Red Blast, whichever one it is, on the Brainstorm there to get deeper in his deck. But what Alessandro's doing here is he's like saying, I've already got my threat in play. It's quite large. I'm trying to keep myself from losing here in this spot, so I'm just going to keep up Force. The only thing that's a little worrisome about it is if like some kind of artifact shenanigans happens, but I don't even think you need to worry about that. I think the Force of Will is going to possibly be able to cover him enough over the next few turns to make sure this Death Shadow can bring him across the finish line.
Yeah, and that's the point that I was kind of trying to make is having the Force plus Daze means you're protected from anything. And John has no cards in hand right now, so it means that even if you were to draw a big artifact that could do something, if it gets countered, the Lotus Petal is no longer on the battlefield, so we don't have that backdoor around counterspells. But it does look like that Force of Will is going to take care of that Fable of the Mirror Breaker, which I like.
Yeah, it would have been another blocker for John here. Plus, what happens? So John's actually at 4 here because of the Ancient Tomb, and this is going to kind of lock John on his mana as well, right? Like the Ancient Tomb isn't free; you're taking 2 every time it happens, and that's another thing for Alessandro here is he's like, if I pressure his life total enough, then like it actually bottlenecks his mana as well. So it looks like Alessandro, the second Death Shadow, might not even have been needed. Going to lock up game 1 for his team.
Yeah, the that 2 damage from the Ancient Tomb doesn't matter until it does, and once it matters, you've been double wastelanded.
Yeah, the Ancient Tomb giveth and the Ancient Tomb taketh away. It is nice to be out ahead of your opponent. Sometimes you get to cast like imagine this game is just Blood Moon on turn 1. There's all kinds of plays, or even just Fable on turn 1 is extremely good. You see, there's Blood Moons, there's Magus of the Moon, there's all kinds of really good expensive stuff that John can play on turn 1 with those cards. But there's also the priority. I mean, the opportunity cost that you're talking about. That life total gets lower, so maybe you get one less turn to play in the game because of all the damage that you've taken.
Right. It definitely speeds the game up on both ends. Looking at these sideboards, I mean, we're definitely bringing the Blood Moons from John's side, because it looks like Alessandro is playing 0 basic lands. So I think that Blood Moon is probably going to be something that we see fights over.
Yeah, I think Blood Moon is going to be a windmill slam. There's a chance that maybe the Shaholdred's Edicts come in to answer some of these big threats out of Alessandro's deck. There are Orcish Bowmasters that can leave around some bodies, but you do what you got to do. And some of these matchups, it just matters how many cards come out of the Painter deck. I don't have a lot of experience playing with it, so I'm not going to begin to act like I know how to sideboard correctly with the Painter deck.
I'm interested to see how these Hydroblasts out of Alessandro's deck play out, because while Hydroblast is very good against John's deck, and Alessandro doesn't know that John is playing Painter. So like in this situation, are we going to start seeing the Painter name black or green instead of red? For it makes it does it does affect some things. Usually you would name red with Painter, but I'm interested to see how that's going to affect if he does correctly play around the Hydroblasts.
Yeah, we'll have to see if that's something that's going to happen. I'm taking a look at the Painter deck, and so say, are there actually any more blast? There's no extra blasts in the sideboard, right? It's just the ones that are main. It looks like for the Painter deck.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So since he's playing Pyroblast, it looks like you will be likely be naming blue off of those Painter Servants. So
absolutely. And from Alessandro's side, let me see if I can pull up his deck list real quick. But generally think just a little bit more of the ways to interact with what's going on John's side. It depends on how he wants his removal suite to work out. Playing Goblin Welder in a format with a bunch of Orcish Bowmasters can get rough, but depends on how many Fatal Pushes do you want on Saunders' deck, because like that card can get languished in your hand after a while, because sometimes you don't even really want to draw it, but then there's Fable the Mirror Breaker too, so there's a lot of give and take here on Alessandra's side.
and it looks like we're getting opening hands.
Yeah, Chad's making some pretty good points here. If you name blue, it can affect Force of Will, right? Like you can pitch other cards to Force of Will, but if you name black, it turns off Snuff Out if you're trying to do something along with the creature. So really cool, interesting thing that's going to possibly come up with what color is named. Kind of similar start to the last game here with the Death Shadow player, but it looks like that's going to be a Wasteland on an Urza Saga that got no value here this game.
Let's see. Looking at these opening hands, it looks like Alessandro's opening hands had Thoughtseize, Orcish Bowmaster. It looks like a Murktide Regent, 3 lands, and I'm having trouble making out that last card.
And also, just light total already pretty low here. He's taken 3 from himself, so he's at 17. This is going to put him down 15. No Water Grave here means he probably either doesn't have Death Shadow yet or has a few more ways to deal more damage to himself. Yeah, I think I saw like Murktide and what I think was a Bowmaster and a bunch of lands. So it looks like Alessandro might be a little flooded here. So Brainstorm would be a very welcome draw for Alessandro.
Yeah, it looks like that the hand looks like John does have that Blood Moon there, so
yeah, it's one of the spots where like I think you pretty much like have to take Blood Moon here, but it's still gonna stink, right? Like you have to take Blood Moon here. They're gonna have Fable next turn, and their hand is pretty powerful here as well. So it's one of those ones like, well, at least you get to take the Blood Moon. You get to play the game, but it's going to be rough here because John's hand is very powerful, and that Fable is going to do more and more to make it even more powerful as the game goes on.
Yeah, if Alessandro doesn't have even have a way to deal with the token that comes out, like because this Fable is going to require 2 answers, since Alessandro doesn't have a counterspell for it. Even being able to deal with the Fable itself, the token is going to generate such a mana advantage for John and give him artifacts for the welder.
Absolutely. John taking time here on his turn, contemplating what he wants to do. He's already drawn for his turn here, so I'm wondering if it's going to be. Yeah, it doesn't look like the Ancient Tomb's coming out just yet. Looks like it's going to be the Urza Saga, and is it going to be a pass from John? It is just going to be a pass. Maybe playing around a little bit of permission here, trying to play the game a little slow since Alessandro hasn't done much. I think another Wasteland just got added to Alessandro's hand. So if he wants to go ahead and take care of that Urza Saga again, or maybe try to deploy one of his threats. But it looks like it's just going to be a Verdant Catacombs and a pass here.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing the line that Alessandro takes, whether he wants to basically reset the game back to the previous turn or start trying to develop. Alessandro does not have a whole lot to develop, but he does have that Orcish Bowmaster. And that Orcish Bowmaster may need to take out a Goblin token from Fable of the Mirror Breaker.
All right, so John again electing not to play spells here, but so this is an interesting. This is going to allow him to activate the Urza Saga multiple times for creature tokens, right? And then he can start playing stuff out after this. And maybe this is a very thought out line from John here. The fact that, yeah, what I want to do here is I want to make sure that I make multiple tokens with this because maybe there's not a lot of removal left over or he can overwhelm cards like Fatal Push and win the game from that way. And if that doesn't work out, then he's still got these cards left over in his hands that he can play. And then you see this patience from the Wasteland here from Alessandro helps out quite a bit because it's going to be able to Wasteland down this Ancient Tomb to slow down John even more here this game.
I do love the Wasteland on the Ancient Tomb because not only does it cut John off of 2 mana as opposed to 1, but it gets rid of the back half, for lack of a better term, of that Urza Saga, where you're only going to be able to get a single construct out of it.
It's
before you
almost
have
like
to
a pseudo. Yeah, it's almost like a pseudo removal spell, right? Like he doesn't get to activate the saga here during this time. So he's going to go get something for free out of his deck, though.
Let's see what he has access to. He's got access to a decent amount of stuff. Let's see. There's Lotus Petal, Grindstone, Mox Opal, Soul Guide Lantern. That's what I see. Unfortunately, not enough artifacts to be able to get mana off of that Mox Opal, activate Metalcraft. If he had the Ancient Tomb, he would have had 3 artifacts for Metalcraft. So just another thing that Alessandro may have been intentionally playing around or just may have worked out in his favor for that.
I wonder how Alessandro feels about the pacing of this game with John kind of playing a little bit slow because Alessandro has been has been pretty land flooded in this game. He's got a couple of threats in his hand, but it's been Murktide and Death Shadow mostly, which are a little bit harder for him to get out. Yeah, he can cast the Murktide here, but doesn't get very big. He doesn't have a ton of stuff in his graveyard that he wants just yet. And then the Death Shadow hasn't been. He's allowed to play it, but it wouldn't survive here at this turn. And now John is starting to develop his board quite a bit here. We're going to see he's going to go finally crack that Wooded Foothills, go get some colored mana in play. And this is another reason why I think John was playing a little slow here. So he's playing around Wasteland just a bit too. And yeah, he's already had some lands Wasteland this turn, but he's protecting his colored mana source because he wants to be able to go get bad lands where he can have red and black mana available to him. He didn't want to run into the nightmare scenario of like, if he played the Fabled Mirror Breaker earlier, and like let's say it gets Daze or Force of Will, right? And then John Alessandro untaps into Wasteland your red source there. John might have been in a spot where he doesn't get to play the game anymore from there. He has no colored mana sources left over, and then he's very far behind Alessandro. So you see John just taking a conservative line here because of the way that his mana played out this game.
Yeah, it's kind of just been it's just been interesting in general to see, especially like I mean now we're looking at Urza Saga number 3.
Yeah, they've been pretty good so far this game. Yeah, they've been meeting some wastelands, but I think the threat of the Urza Sagas is what's going to be very important here. And then if you get multiple Karn Stroke tokens, I like to call them off of this, I think that might be too much for also to deal with, but we'll have to see. Death Shadow is going to go a long way once his life total gets down a little bit.
Uh,
So I think we might have, lost Jeff
let's
here for everybody at
like
home a little bit. Yeah, it sounds like Jeff is having a little bit of an audio issue, so I'm going to take over here until he gets back. So it does look like Alessandro is going to go ahead and just play land and pass here over to John. Now, this is where it starts getting a little scary for Alessandro. The second counter getting put on this third versus Saga here is going to be able to make multiple construct tokens, and now the board's going to start getting big and scary. But Alessandro does have a couple big creatures left over in his hand. He does have a Death Shadow. He does have a Murktide Regent, so let's see if he's going to be able to battle the board. But every artifact is so big for John here. He's going to be able to make multiple artifacts off the Urza Saga, go get another one out of his deck. So he's going to have what? These are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 5s or 6 6s a piece. This is going to be hard for Alessandro to keep up with.
Yeah, John is running out of artifacts to replace Urza Saga with that tap for mana. But I'm wondering I'm wondering if John is going to kind of put his cards face up on the table next turn and get that grindstone. With like I said, with this being a closed deckless tournament, we don't know if John and Alessandro know the ins and outs of each other's decks, but John during his next main phase putting a grindstone onto the battlefield is pretty much going to the jig is going to be up at that point.
Yeah, you have to wonder, like, you know, how much legacy does Alessandro play? Like, how much does he ingest? Are you up on the times? Because if I was sitting in Alessandro's seat and I'd never played against this deck, you can kind of make the assumption like, yeah, this is probably a painter deck, but like you haven't seen anything from the painter deck yet. You haven't seen anything like that says, oh yeah, that's 100% painter.
Right. The interesting thing that we were discussing about it before is it disguises itself as a stompy deck a little bit. Now we haven't seen any of the real stompy elements from John, but we haven't seen any of the painter elements. We've seen the Fable of the Mirror Breakers and the Blood Moons. The Fury is not quite so much, but like we're seeing a little bit of like the mid-range stompy-ish elements from this deck. And let's see if we actually go to get the grindstone, because we are almost out of artifacts to get with this Urza Saga.
Yeah, and he's going to need artifacts too as well, because this board is getting big and menacing for Alessandro here. There's a Death Shadow. The Murktide Regent has been deployed, and now there's a couple of other creatures that you can use to chump block as well. Yeah. Any damage he takes here is going to make the Death Shadow gigantic as well. So John's going to take his time here, try to figure out what he's going to do with his third counter one.
It's looking like he wants to decide whether he's going to make another construct and get a little pile of 3/3s there. And I think that's what's going to happen. But I think what we have is Grindstone, Mox Opal, and Soul Guide Lantern. You see him looking at the Soul Guide Lantern a little bit.
Yeah, I'll see which one of those he definitely wants to get. It's going to take...
That looks like a Mox Opal.
Yeah, let's say a little faster. There we go. A little Mox Opal into play. Maybe make sure that he has extra colored mana sources here in case the Wasteland happens. He doesn't want to get caught off of red or black. So right now they are 4/4s a piece. So big enough to tussle with Death Shadow, but it's going to be hard to attack through the board that Alessandro is presenting. Well, he also has a flyer as well. Any red blast would be great for John here, but I think he's only playing 3, one of which has already been played this game. Oh, Great Furnace is in play as well, so they're 5/5s.
Oh yeah, the Great Furnace. That's right. So that kind of that holds the Death Shadow back at least. But we do still have this other 5/5 in the air that's going to give John a lot of trouble if he doesn't find a red blast.
It looks like we're gonna go ahead and activate an Ancient Tomb, take a little bit of damage here. And what is this going to be getting out? Looks like it's going to be a Goblin Engineer. card that had kind of like fallen out of favor quite a bit. It used to be one of the better cards in Modern for a while. While you had the Wurza deck, as everybody called it, for a good bit. It was really popular and very very good in Modern. Kind of leading to some of the cards in Modern that are banned now on the ban list. And it's nice to see the card kind of come back because the card's really powerful. I like it a lot. It's really good, and you can see why it's getting played in this deck.
Yeah,
It,
I really like the it's kind of a mashup between Stoneforge Mystic and Goblin Welder. I think it's really well designed.
mhm. So like it's really good for decks like this, right? Like it's a threat. It goes and gets part of your combo. It can do the welder impersonation. It kind of like does everything, right?
Yeah.
And it's just an innocuous little creature as well that people are gonna have a problem dealing with. So interesting. John's taking a look at ensnaring bridge here, maybe trying to buy the most time he can possible. Because if ensnaring bridge gets into play, I think Alessandro would have to look to see if he has a brazen bar or not. He has one brazen bar. Or, I was going to say, yeah, it looks like he might have one brazen bar. That might be the only way he has to interact with that card. He might have a Hercules Recall in his sideboard that has probably been brought in. Hercules Recall would be pretty sweet against this board.
Hercules Recall would be pretty sweet against this board. I'm not sure if if I would bring it in. I would definitely not bring it in if I'm not 100% sure I'm against Painter. But I don't know how I feel about bringing in Hercules Recall unless the unless there are cards that are just bad enough to always take out.
Yeah, I mean, like they do have Urza Saga, so like you know that the floor on that card is pretty high. So like yeah, I think it just depends on how many cards you're taking out and how up to date Alessandra is here with that. But it's one of the ones I think I would be bringing it in like from John's seat I mean an Alessandra seat in a vacuum if I didn't know. But we'll have to see. It would be absurd right here. But so it does look like John is going to line up a little bit of an attack here. So they match up well against this Death Shadow. They're the same size. If Alessandro takes any damage here, his Death Shadow becomes absolutely huge, but then his life total gets very low. So it looks like that's might be what he's contemplating here is chump block one, take the 5 or the other, or is he going to? Oh yeah.
If I believe if you're taking the 5, then you just block with Death Shadow.
Yeah, if you're taking the 5, so the way that damage resolves, if you like say were to block with the 5/5 with the 5/5 Death Shadow here, but the damage comes through the Death Shadow would actually survive.
Yeah,
Because damage all checks at the same time, yeah. But it looks like he just wants to go ahead and chump and then remove one of the artifacts off the board here. So they're down to what, 4/4s now?
Yeah, we've got 2 constructs, a Mox Opal, and a Great Furnace.
So Murktide is the biggest creature in play for now. But the problem is any artifact makes it too big here. Plus, you might even get to attack the rest of the game as well because of this ensnaring bridge. So
yeah, I do like putting the ensnaring bridge into the graveyard because what it does is it shows Alessandro, hey, this is face up. It's not on the battlefield, so I can still attack you. But if you ever put me into a position where you can attack me, I'm gonna make sure that you can't. And I do really like that. Because it's obviously much better than putting it on a battlefield because John is slightly ahead right now. And there aren't a whole lot of good options for what to get with the Goblin Engineer because you can search for anything and put it into your graveyard, but it only returns things with converted mana cost 3 or less. So if you already had a welder on the battlefield, then I say we swing for the fences. But we're gonna swing for the bridge instead.
okay, I like that. I think John is down a little bit lower than his life total sit here, but it looks like we're finally gonna get one of those fables that we've been seeing for quite a while from him. It's gonna go ahead and make the token. That's another artifact, right? No, this one is not an artifact. It makes an artifact, right?
Yes, when it attacks, it'll make a treasure that can be sacrificed.
It looks like the
There's
welder is going to come in behind that.
I don't believe we have anything big in the graveyard to weld, but we do have that gives us the backup for the ensnaring bridge.
Yeah, one of the scariest one drops ever printed in Magic, but just gets shot down by an orc now is one of the weird things in Magic. It's like this super powerful one drop, and you're like, okay, my Orcish Bowmaster will come into play and shoot it for one. It's kind of like the big scary thing in this format, but it's one of the reason why the Welder is pretty good. I'm a big fan of it in these decks. You
Yeah,
can,
I remember a time where
or the Engineer, sorry, I meant the Engineer being the one too, but go ahead, sorry.
I remember a time when if it has 3 or less toughness, it doesn't actually matter how much toughness it has because any toughness less than 3 is 3 toughness. Because it just dies to bolt. Everybody's playing bolt, just dies to bolt. Now with Orcish Bowmaster, like toughness matters a lot more. Like it's not just, oh, I play my Delver of Secrets and it gets bolted, or I play this Welder and it gets bolted. Now
We're
it's
back to the Ren in 6 days when it
yeah,
first came
yeah,
out.
exactly. Like where one toughness really matters, but
Like,
also because of how Orcish Bowmasters work, often 2 toughness matters too.
hey, can you imagine how mad you'd be if you were like a Death and Taxes player, Ren in 6 gets banned, you're like, finally, like, my 1/1s are safe again. And then you see Orcish Bowmaster get printed, you're like, come on! It's meant to stop the blue decks and it randomly, beats up on my deck. This isn't fair.
Yeah, yeah. Like why does this happen when it enters the battlefield? Why can't
Yeah.
it just happen when we draw extra cards?
Like, so annoying. I would just be so mad. I remember the first tournament where Ren 6 was playable, like, I played it, like, I, like, played someone turn one, and my opponent just played a Mom on their turn one. I just played Ren 6 and killed it, and my opponent literally looked at me, looked at the card, looked at it, and he goes, how's my deck playable anymore? And I'm like, that's not a question that I can answer. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the answer is until this gets banned, it's
Yeah.
it's gonna be rough for you.
Yeah, somebody in chat saying Thalia and Shambles. Yeah, they feel the pain.
Yeah, now I'm paying 3 mana to destroy your Thalia and your Flicker Wisp and your and.
Yeah. John's starting to make a crazy board, looking like almost like a game of Commander here going on. Just so much stuff going on. It looks like the players. This is something that's going to happen in team games quite a bit, where every now and then there's going to be a little bit of a lull in play because they're helping out their teammates. And so it seems to be going on a little bit of consultation going on back and forth. Alessandro has a blue card and a force in his hand, but as I say, I don't know if this is one of the ones that he wants to stop as well because everything's kind of already going on. Like this is just adding to what's already happening. I think that's the Defiler that just got put into the
Yep.
graveyard. If someone in chat wants to put that one, it's Chaos Defiler. So everybody in chat can see what that one does.
Let's see. I'll when it enters the battlefield or dies, for each opponent, choose a non-land permanent that player controls. Destroy one of them chosen at random. Okay, so this it basically when it enters the battlefield or dies, you get a vindicate.
So what this is going to do is now Alessandro, the welder is no longer sick, right? He played the welder last turn. So
Yes.
what this is like he can just weld this into play over and over and over again against Alessandro. So it's going to start killing all of his non-land permanents.
Yeah, and what I know you were discussing the dynamics of team events and how sometimes games take a little bit longer, stuff like that. But one thing that you notice in team events is when someone is in an unwinnable position, they start paying a lot less attention to their game and
Yep.
start paying attention to their teammates'
Yeah.
games.
So if this construct were to, they're going to go ahead and kill off this as well, and it's going to kill all of the non-land permanents from Alessandro. But if he plays any of them, the Defiler just gets welded into play and automatically kills it. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a little bit too much. We're going to be seeing game 3 here between these two players. John really showing off the power of his deck here, and he can really grind with the best of them with this deck. Pun intended.
Yeah, Goblin Welder has always been really good at grinding people out. It just used to grind people out with Wormcoil engines.
It was more literal, right? It was
Right.
like way more literal in the past. It literally grinded you.
Yes, it also literally grinded you.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the situations where we determined we had to win through the combat step, it would just weld
A Wormcoil or Thundering Titan was one for a while
Sundering
as
Titan
well.
also one.
Yeah. Looks like we're gonna go peek over at Modern
Okay.
for a minute here. Looks like is it Murktide versus Rakdos CM, one of the classic matchups here, and we came in right when somebody died.
It's been great commentating this game with you, Tannen.
Yeah, it was a really good one. Jeff, I wouldn't want anyone else in the world.
Okay. Did that determine that match? Because I didn't really get to see who won.
That I'm not sure of, but it looks like our players are still shuffling up for game 3 here. I don't even know if the monitor match is over. It looks like they might still be shuffling up as well. A lot of pressure on these teams, 9-2 coming in. We were talking about 9-3 or X-3 might make it in, might be a lock. We're not sure, but if you win this round, you're into the top 8, or sorry, the top 6 most likely. So ton of pressure for these players, and you're talking about the dynamic, right, of team events, and I don't know. I found sometimes it was more like, I've played a lot of these, right? And I found that a lot of times it was more pressure than normal playing in a team event, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like, it helped focus me. I found myself like playing tighter in a lot of spots, making sure not to give anything away, and like maybe that I cared more, which I think you should just, if you're going to be playing competitive Magic, you should care about the first game of the day and the last game of the day equally, right? Like, you just play your best all the time. I remember Jerry had a long talk with me about that once. He's like, yeah, you should just play all your games the same as hard as you possibly can. But there's something to be said about not letting your friends down. I mean, you don't
Right.
want to feel like that. Like, yeah, it's okay to lose. Like, if you're going to lose, you lose, right? And you do that as a team. But like, at the same time, you're like, I just want to play my best Magic possible in these spots. And that's why I think a lot of times you also see like tighter deck selection in team events. You don't want to give it away before you sit down at the table, right? Like, you don't want to show up with a brew that's like untested, and then you go 0-6 and your teammates like, yo, like, what's going on? You didn't just wreck your tournament, you wrecked ours as well.
And you end up in the situation we were talking about before, where sometimes you do play against the 0-4 deck in the 4-0 bracket because that person's been getting carried. So
Yeah,
like you're not every round in day one, even up until till like round 9, you still are kind of worried about playing against some random rogue deck that did like that you can't beat, right?
yeah. You bring this up, and I just got to do this because I got to troll myself a little bit talking about something like that happened. I remember I used to team a lot with Ross Merriam and Brendan Candio, and Brendan Candio was known as like an innovator in standard for a long time, right? Like, his deck list would always get copied, and one of our mini losses in the finals, um, so our decks got posted as like second place at this SCG Open with like a new set came out, right? And so Brennan got to post a standard deck as like second place. And I remember I got messaged and DM'd on like Twitter and Facebook and a bunch of other stuff like a million times, like, yo, is Brennan's deck good? Like, it looks sweet. I'm just like, no, it's literally unplayable. He was
Like,
so bad. Like,
I mean,
he won the perfect amount of matches, because he's so much better than me in Magic, and it got him to the finals, right? And the deck was not good, but people were playing it all the time. I remember Jim Davis like wrote an article or something about that, about the follies of just looking at results for team events, because it's definitely a thing that can happen for sure.
yeah, like I mean, we've all got good stories from team events. I've played in a team event. My modern seat was talking to me because he'd already lost his match, and I was playing Omni Show, and my opponent, who I already know is on Belcher, just like plays a Lion's Eye Diamond and says go. And my teammate is like, dude, just go for it. I'm like, no, man, because I've got like the Emrakul and the Show and Tell in my hand. He's like, just go for it. I'm like, no, man. He's like, what do you got to lose? I'm like, he's gonna play. He's going to just immediately drop the Belcher onto the battlefield, and I'm gonna lose because he's gonna crack the LED. And he finally talks me into it. I cast Show and Tell, and I say, wait, can I force my own Show and Tell?
Whoops.
Because like the Show and Tell resolved, and he immediately put the Belcher onto the battlefield and killed
Yep. Yep. So we had the tournament Thoughtseize here take away this Pyro Blast. It looks like we're gonna have a Welder come up behind this. And another Thoughtseize is going to follow this one up as well, and start to really rip apart this hand from John. Looks like we got the Dragon Engine there, another Pyroblast. It looks like Grindstone, and I can't tell what that last card in his hand is. What have you got to lose? The game.
See if I can figure out what that last card is.
Is it
Okay,
the
there is a
Filer?
Chaos Filer now.
Yeah. I still can't think
That
of
is
what the last
Phyrexian
red.
Dragon Engine.
No, the red, is that an engineer?
Oh, that looks like an engineer.
Yeah. The perfect amount of movement with these glossy sleeves from John over here.
Yeah,
Honestly, that looks like an engineer from the text. Yeah.
yeah, I see the text.
I had the Dragon Engine. I had that one. I couldn't tell what the red card was. especially when they're especially the newer ones, they look a little too similar.
Yeah, it's a little rough when the art itself is very dark too.
Mhm.
I know this card though. The grindstone that it looks like it's about to play.
Yeah. So one of the great things about matches like this, where you play a deck like Rakdos Painter, right? Like it's not a super popular deck. People aren't going to know your deck list off the top of their head like they will when you're playing, Death Shadow or some version of Delver. Like you usually get about 70 or 75 right? You know their deck. There's a little bit of that extra, hey, I'm playing a rogue. I'm using quotations here, like a rogue-ish deck. Not one of the most known like two or three decks. So some stuff gets away with it. So whenever one of my teammates would do this, I always tell them like, yeah, don't ask me for help. I have no idea how to play your deck, and I have no idea what's going on. So I can answer some general questions, but when you ask me about play lines, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, like I was super excited when we started this match to see Painter because you don't see Painter every day, right?
I haven't seen Painter in a long time,
It's
actually.
been a while. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it putting up results here or there, at some of the legacy events and some of the stuff online, but yeah, I haven't seen it in paper. I haven't been grinding in a very long time in Legacy, and I gotta say it's been pretty impressive. The deck looks really cool.
Yeah, it's I like the changes that have happened to it. Like I said, Legacy has a lot of very different cards, but at least looking at the top tables, the decks are the same. We've just improved upon them with new cards.
Yeah, the strategies are gonna typically stay the same, right? Like you have all these archetypes, but the card's gonna get upgraded. Power creep's a real thing. Cards like Ragavan got printed, and since been banned, but you have these updates and stuff. And so every now and then a newish archetype gets spawned, but they're generally around the same type of thing. The card's names change.
Right, right. Yeah, you end up with more Goblin Welders in the form of Goblin
Is
Engineer.
that a powder keg?
That I believe that's Powder Keg.
Speaking of cards you haven't seen in a while, this is not Cube, but this is a match of Legacy Magic.
Oh, that's Powder Keg. No ratchet bombs today. We're going with Powder Keg. I love this.
A blast from the past here. Okay, so it looks like he's activating it for 0 here, right? And so this one destroys each artifact and creature of critical mana cost equal to or less. So this is going to Stone Rain John here
One
and kill
one
the
way
Great Price.
one way in which that card is better than Ratchet Bomb.
Yeah. He does it and kills. I mean, he was all started was ready. He knew what's up.
I mean, he pulled the Great Furnace over to read it before casting the Powder Keg, so he knew exactly what the plan was.
Let me make sure this is what's going on. Yeah.
I mean, here comes the fun. I assume we're looking for a Painter Servant here.
Well, I think Alexander's deciding if he wants to Force of Will. And I think it's the last two cards in his hand are a blue card and Force of Will. And so he'd just be playing off the top of his deck. But he's trying to wonder, it's like, okay, so there's no second artifact yet in play since he killed the Great Furnace. But like, I don't know if you can, I was supposed to say, I don't know if you can play with the idea of, he'll never have another artifact to be able to, grind to get Grindstone and Painter in at the same time. But it does look like this is going to beat Force, so empty hand here for Alexander, draws a card and says go. John up with 3 here, and if he can get any forward momentum in a commanding position for his team.
Yeah, I don't think playing around my opponent never having an artifact for the rest of the game when they play 11 of them plus 4 as a sagas is
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's the winning strategy, but I mean it's having to get rid of that Murktide Regent is not great, and he does not look happy about that Dragon Engine either.
Yeah, this was double strike if I remember correctly on this stuff. So
Yes, it has it's a 2/2 double strike, and when it enters the battlefield from your graveyard, you can discard your hand and draw 3.
yeah, that was a slight upgrade for the Painter's deck. It's just a really cool card to come out of the March of the Machine sets. Really love that set. One of my favorite ones has come out the last few years. I love sets that are innocuous a little bit when they come out, and then little things like this kind of like find their way through the cracks and make it into some of the decks,
Yeah,
and that are really powerful and cool. So it looks like I think the match just ended.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut over to modern and see how the match ends there. It's gonna tell us who won and how in there as well. Because that was the deciding match. So it looks like yeah, we're gonna cut over here. Game 3 between these two players. Rakdos scam on the play has a Ragavan on turn 1. Is it Murktide's going to go ahead and shock in a Steam Vits here on turn 1? Do they have an answer to Ragavan here? Be pretty important to take care of this Ragavan on turn 1. Looks like 2 baubles. So maybe they don't have it now. They might have a chance. It looks like there's a lightning bolt though in Charles Vincent's hand. So okay, this is going to be the start of the turn. Yep. Looks like I guess that's an unholy heat. I apologize. I think there is a lightning bolt in his hand though. So back over to Zyle. It looks like we got activation from one of the baubles here. I'm going to do this during Zyle's turn as well, kind of maybe protecting himself against some Thoughtseize like effects out of the scam deck, like the timing here on using of the baubles.
Yeah, and looking at this, at least looking at the Is It Murktide list, both of these decks look pretty standard.
Yeah, all
Nothing
stock.
super exciting coming out of either of them. So
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these decks in Modern have been, if it's not involving the ring, they've been kind of solved. Which I'm surprised we haven't seen a ton of rings so far this weekend. Because I've been hearing that's all that matters in Modern, and obviously what happens at the Pro Tour here very shortly to see if we're right or wrong on that. But I've seen some really good and powerful ring decks that have been very impressive in this format. But these are two decks that are just very powerful anyway, and have really good plans from these points. So
yeah, the ring itself is a powerful card, but I mean it's kind of similar in modern to Legacy, where 4 mana is a lot. Like the Tron decks are easily getting 4 mana, but 4 mana is still a lot to be paying for a spell. And if you were paying 4 mana for a spell, it should probably be winning you the game in some fashion.
yeah, absolutely, no, 100%. So it looks like the army is going to go ahead and attack in here. Back over to Zyle. Looks like he's going to play a Blood Crypt tapped and back over Charles. Nobody really getting out ahead of each other too much here. I've just been a bunch of answers back and forth for the threats. See if one of the big threats maybe from Charles' deck can stick and stay around. Try to decide, does he want to use this, draw an extra card here off this bauble? It does look like he does. He's going to do the scry check of the bauble here. So this is something cool you can do with your bauble. If you bauble yourself and you look at the top card of your deck with a fetch land in play, if you want to keep it, you can just not crack the fetch land. But if it's a card you don't want, you can also just crack the fetch land and get a fresh card off the top.
Yeah, it functions very similar to the way we were seeing it in Legacy with Delver's Secrets.
Right.
Just being able to get access to more information, especially when staring down this Bowmaster and 3 power worth of creatures right now, which may get bigger very soon.
Yeah, Charles is going to go get an untapped Steam Vents here, though. I'm going to believe maybe there's an answer to the Bowmasters here, because if not, there's going to be an extra trigger here on the Bowmasters when he redraws that extra card for his bottle trigger. Let's see, it does look like, I believe there's a lightning bolt or something like that left over in his hand. Yep, looks like another Unholy Heat. Yep, I'm going to take care of the Bowmasters. Charles is going to draw 2 cards here. Yeah, for everybody in chat, the match ended while we were watching the Legacy match, but we weren't sure who won. But we know that the modern seat, whoever wins this match wins the match for their team. So we're going to watch it in real time, game 3 here of who wins this match. Just giving everybody a heads up. Seems like chat was a little confused into what happened. We're time traveling, all of us together. We got into our collective time machine, and we went back about 12 minutes, and we're going to watch see who won this match.
Yeah, it looks like we have a Dragon's Rage channeler that isn't quite online yet. We've got 3/4 of Delirium.
Yeah, the land artifact instant, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
think I saw another bolt as well in Charles's hand. Way to take care of this Bowmaster token if he wants. That can also possibly get him Delirium. With that trigger off the Dragon Rage Channeler. Looks like an expressive iteration as well. Maybe we're still in his main phase. He's thinking about doing that here. I was supposed to say, I think we're back over to Xyle. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, it's unfortunately the Dragon Rage channeler isn't going to be safe. We don't know what's in Xyle's hand, but even a a lightning bolt or something like that is going to be able to take that out before he gets Delirium. Okay, so it does look like we're in Xyle's combat step.
Yeah, I think he was just contemplating on whether he should attack or not, because if there's instant speed Delirium, then obviously no, then you can't block, right? So right. Yeah. I think he's maybe thinking about something else there, about exactly how to play this here. So back over to Charles. See what he wants to do. So it's going to be Expressive Iteration. So trigger the Dragon Rage Channeler. That's an artifact that's going in the graveyard, so still not Delirium.
That looks like a unlicensed hearse.
Yep.
Cool. So
here comes Expressive Iteration. A card I haven't seen in quite a while. I've been watching too much Modern lately, and it's been banned in a lot of the other formats. So
yeah, and unfortunately, Modern's the only format that we can really watch it right now.
Mm-hmm. And lately, just been seeing a bunch of like scam decks and ring decks. But this is really, I kind of miss this card. I'm a big fan. Probably a little bit too good, but it's nice to have good cards to play with.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird state of affairs when we're now looking at an Izzet Murktide deck and we're like, yeah, that's it. Let's go Izzet Murktide.
Yeah, let's get that card banned. Yeah. Yeah, the first generation Moderns, brainstorming the fact that it just takes a while to resolve the whole thing. You have to go through all the machinations of everything. So it looks like it's going to be one card to hand, one card to bottom here, and then Dragon Rage Channeler was exiled and going to get played here this turn as well.
And that sorcery gets us up to Delirium.
And it looks like this Terminate is going to go ahead and kill the Dragon Rage Channeler that was able to attack here. So no attack from the Delirious Dragon Rage Channeler here this turn. But one is left over, and this is going to be a Hardcast Fury to clean up the other one. It looked like he was taking his time last turn. He's playing quickly this one because he knows what's up. And he's going to get some damage in here as well from the army. Looks like Charles is going to go down to 8 here, facing down lethal damage if he doesn't do anything to take care of his board.
I do like how Xyle's clearly gotten into go mode posture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nothing wrong with taking your time when you need to think it out, but he knew what he was doing with all his other plays. I think there's an Unholy Heat left over in Charles's hand here, so this would be able to take care of this Fury. It'd get a trigger up the Dragon Rage Channeler as well.
I see a Lightning Bolt.
I thought I saw an Unholy Heat. I could be wrong. Okay, well, there we go. There's the Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, the textless Lightning Bolt.
This is what we have you here for.
Yeah, I will point out the promo cards for you. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Please. So it looks like another one of these elementals is going to cast its Hardcast Grief here. This turn. Grief, one of the ones just really having a coming out party here in the last couple of months. Very good in Rakdos Scam, and then has become very, very good in Legacy here as well. It looks like Unholy Heat's going to go ahead and take care of that. A Pyromancer, I think, was left over in the hand to get taken by the Grief. And then the last card from Xyle is going to be a Ragavan, but off the top here, very good card for Charles here. Expressive Iteration. This is going to get the fuel really going here. Yeah,
that expressive iteration exactly what Charles did. Oh, and the exiled card, Murktide. Okay.
Well, so let's say, I wonder if Charles wants to shrink his Dragon Rage Channeler here before attacking. I don't know if that was what he wanted to do, if he wanted to attack for 3 in the air or leave back a blocker here. So I think maybe leaving back a blocker might just be better because, removal spell doesn't put you in this very, very bad spot. Like, say Xyle untaps, kills the Murktide after you attacked for 3, and then attacks you for 4 and gets a card on top of your deck. So kind of like this if he's able to make himself not have Delirium here.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like, in this situation, I know that I'm going to be in the driver's seat if I untap, but I'm not yet in the driver's seat. So, okay, we are. I guess he's decided that.
Maybe he still has Delirium after all that, so
Okay.
sure. So it looks like it might have had to attack. Because I don't know cards in hand, so you can kind of play it like, you can play as if there isn't a removal spell, but if Zal top decks one, he's in a pretty decent spot as well. I'd be half of Charles' select total plus a card up top, but him taking this long, I gotta believe that's not a. If this was like a Terminator or whatever, I would just windmill slam that from the top of my deck.
Yeah. Yeah, it leaves Charles in an interesting position. The fact that Zyle's thinking about it means that the position isn't quite as precarious as we thought it was going to be. But
Yeah. So it does look like he's gonna attack with both. Sacrifice the Ragavan here. Yeah, he's got a backup Ragavan, so 2 damage gets across, gets him to 6 in the same spot. This looks like another Murktide. I don't know if this is gonna be. Does he have enough here to be able to get rid of? Because you can kind of fireball here with the Murktide. If you remove enough instants and sorceries, it grows the other one.
yes,
So yeah, this goes up to 7, I believe, right? So this is 7, 8, 9, 10, 13.
as
This is exactly lethal, I think, right?
7, 10. Is it 13? Does he have a lightning bolt in his hand?
No, I was gonna say because it's 7 counters plus the 3 power on the Murktide plus the 3 power on the Dragon Mage Chandler, right?
On the Dragon's Rage challenge. Well, he's
Is he? Oh yeah, if he still has Delirium, yeah.
yeah. That's what I was trying to figure out if he still had Delirium. Okay.
So if he does, this should be lethal. Yeah. There we go. There we go. It is a 10/10, but it only has 7 counters. There we go.
Being able to exile that many instants and sorceries and still have Delirium is impressive.
So looks like maybe no Delirium after the exile. I think I see land, artifact, and creature.
There's 4 cards in the graveyard.
Yeah, but it looks like it might be 2 lands, but it's going to be too much anyway. I was supposed to say I don't know a card that Zyle can top deck off the top of his deck, keep him in this game. Or removal spell wouldn't have got it done. So it looks like Charles Vincent is going to be victorious in this modern match and win it for his team, and put them to 10-2. And I've got to believe that locks them for top 6 as far as I think we know.
Yeah, there's one more round based on what I have seen of the standings at the beginning of this round. I'm not going to say that 10-3 is safe, but it's even 10-3
Looking good.
pretty
It's
good.
looking good. Yeah, exactly.
So X and 2, I think if they get paired correctly and can draw, they're good. Even if they get paired incorrectly, they're likely still in a good spot.
Well, I think that's going to do it for myself and you today, Jeff. Thanks for joining me. It was an absolute blast. Anu, thanks for having us. Shout out to all the sponsors on the stream as well, and chat for being amazing. There's 1,300 of y'all in here. Y'all have been awesome all weekend long. I've been watching this quite a bit. Don't go anywhere though. We got a lot of Magic left over. There's another round of Swiss plus the top 6 that's going to be going on. Dominic Harvey and Andrew Ellenbogen are going to be here to walk you through that for the rest of the day. So you definitely don't want to miss that. But Jeff, thanks for hanging out with me this weekend. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've had a blast. It's been great actually being able to have a conversation with you during an event where I'm not just like
You're not my boss. Yeah.
trying to make you laugh or whatever. It's
Yeah.
the people get to hear the awful things that I say to you. It's great.
Sure. All right. Well, hey, it's been a blast chat. Thanks for being awesome, Anu. Thank you for having us. And we're gonna go to break. It's gonna be really quick on the turnover here, so don't go anywhere because you don't want to miss the next round. The rest of Magic here from Cincinnati.
Thanks, guys.